I am going to be talking a lot about the women and the family role in the Civil War, specifically on the southern side. My dearest Michael, Mr. LaRue, my heart will ache until we meet again. I so long to share our home and hearth once more. I hope this letter finds you well and trust you are in good health. Your beloved Catherine. Letters were extremely important to the soldiers in the field. You know, it gave them encouragement, you know, gave them, you know, the reasons, you know, to fight for what they wanted to fight for. It was the women back home who were holding down the home front, okay? And one of the biggest issues that they had, or problems they had, was with the war and prices and things like that. Just the basic necessities and items that they needed to get were difficult to come by. Like right before secession, it basically cost an average Civil War, you know, a Southern family about $6.64, you know, per month for groceries for their family. And after the Civil War actually, you know, got really involved and started up, that number skyrocketed up to about $400 a month. Everybody relied on each other in the community, and that was what was most important, I think, and that allowed a lot of these families to be able to get by. And women in those days, how they would also be able to cope with the situations of the war, they would have a lot of events like quilting bees and so on and so forth. They would get together about once a week if they were privileged to do so, of course, and perhaps do some quilting and, you know, have some tea and cookies and things of that nature. In fact, when a woman would go to one of these teas, she would often, because, you know, a lot of people didn't have like full place settings and things of that nature, she would actually carry her own teacup with her to go to these quilting and social events with the families. And that typically when a girl turned about 13, 14 years old, she would be introduced to the corset. And I actually have what I would call, obviously it's not an original corset, but as I got involved in the reenacting, I had a period correct corset made. I will pass this around some of the ladies, and they might want to examine it with the authentic, with stays, bone stays and everything. And after wearing one of these for about 9 hours, I understand why a lot of the women succumbed at an early age. Because they could be quite uncomfortable. But again, the corsets were not worn on an everyday use. They were mainly worn, again, by the privileged, or if you had some special event or occasion where you wanted to present yourself in a certain way. So you would have the corsets, you'd have the corset cover, you'd have the pantalettes, and then you would have, over the pantalettes, you might have another slip here over the pantalettes, and then, and I'm, of course, you'll have to pardon me, hopefully I'm not doing anything revealing here, but you would have another layer. You know, you would also have perhaps a chemise underneath that. So as you can see, I have the pantalettes. You'd have a full leg knee stocking with the chemise, and then you have, like I said, this is called a corded petticoat. If most of the time women did not wear hoops when they were at home, they would wear these corded petticoats, which would keep their real dresses from touching the ground. And it had just a cord around the bottom, sort of lifting the skirt up a little bit. And then you have but if you were going to be wearing your hoop, you'd have your hoop. And then on top of your hoop, you have another slip, which is called a hoop slip. And if you were wearing your finest, which is I am today, then you might have some netting on top of that. So when it's all said and done, you have about 5 to 7 layers of clothing, which can make for a very hot day when it's 90 degrees in Virginia.